It's the Wiltfong Whip Around with Steve Wiltfong. Today is Monday, May 9th. I am your host, Josh Newberg. Excited to be here today. We got some major news to cover. But first, guys, make sure you are subscribed to the best recruiting channel in the land. On 3 Recruits channel, hit subscribe. Also, get the Wiltfong Whip Around on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. All right, let's get into it. The Florida State Seminoles, they've been relatively quiet on the recruiting trail this offseason. 4 commitments, sitting in 12th place, doing okay, but as they usually do, recruiting heats up in the summer months, and right on cue, the Noles are starting to gain traction with some big names. Let's bring in Steve Wiltfong. Steve, welcome to the show, and you are bullish right now on FSU recruiting. A big article up on on3.com right now. Also included some new predictions from you on the recruiting prediction machine. Let's take a look. FSU trending with 5-star offensive lineman Josh Petty. You put that in about a week ago. We spoke about that on the last Wiltfong Whip Around, but 2 new ones, Myon Charles from Port Charlotte and Max Redmond from down south as well. Let's talk about Myon Charles for a second. Now, the defensive lineman is thought to be kind of trending in the Noles direction, but what made you finally put in that pick today?
Well, like you said, I like Florida State's position for Myon Charles right now. Talked to him this week. I think they continue to set the pace in this recruitment. Another program to definitely watch is Texas, but the Seminoles, their play style, the way they develop defensive linemen under the staff, being around great players, being around the energy of this coaching staff, those are all things that really stand out to him right now. And again, talking to him this week, I feel like Florida State is in pole position as he goes into his official visits.
Yeah, I think coming into this week, Florida State fans kind of knew they were in good position with Myon Charles. But the next pick that you put in, this is for Max Redmond, and he's out of West Palm Beach, Florida. He goes to Cardinal Newman High School. He's not even ranked here at On3 right now, but he goes 6'3", 195. Florida State is involved, and you've already put in a pick for him to FSU. What's going on here with this recruitment?
Well, he will be ranked soon by On3. He's a guy absolutely coveted by Florida State in the secondary. And I think talking to sources, they have also set the tone in this recruitment. So my prediction reflects that. Florida State in on a lot of DBs right now, Josh. It's not a big position of need for them with the way they've recruited it the last 2 cycles, but guys like Jordan Young are out there. They're still going to go after Dallas Golden, who's committed to Notre Dame, DJ Pickett. They're going to try and get on campus, but Max Redmond is one that I feel good about Florida State for at this point in the cycle.
Steve, FSU, are they going to finally capitalize on their undefeated season, turn it into some big wins on the recruiting trail?
Well, some other guys, in addition to these recent RPM forecasts, that Florida State's definitely in good shape for. I was recently introduced to Roback, and I couldn't be more excited. When I say impressed by the quality and comfort, I mean it. I literally can't take this stuff off since trying it on. For starters, the Roback polos are my favorite polos. They not only have fun designs for every occasion and season, but they fit perfectly and easily transition throughout the day. Roback's everyday shorts are the perfect pairing as well. They are so comfortable and have an elastic waistband and great fabric that is made to stretch. Finally, the Roback hoodie is by far my favorite piece of clothing I own. It is so comfortable. I wear this to start my day, end my day, and everything in between. Easy to be active in it or just relax. The hoodie will fit whatever the day has in store. They have also released a ton of new products. Between their brand new Tailwind tees and bathing suits, Roback is ready for the warm weather. Roback has also been proudly leading the NIL charge, having signed partnerships with college stars Jalen Milroe, Cade Klubnik, among many others that are becoming the go-to brand for college athletes. Use the code STEVE on Roback.com for a generous 20% off for all new customers through the end of this week. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. That's 20% off all performance polos, shorts, and more with the code STEVE. Still like them for on 300 running back Byron Louie and his Fort Lauderdale American Heritage teammate Zay Thomas, a defensive back. Also have them forecasted on the RPM for offensive lineman Peyton Joseph. And they're definitely in the thick of it, as you talked with Chad Simmons about it on an Inside Scoop recently. Vernell Brown, one of the most coveted receivers in the country. Florida State in the top 2 or 3 for him as well.
All right. Let's whip it around to Georgia. We're in Athens, where we're going to talk some Bulldog recruiting and some new predictions. Steve, You've dropped 3 new predictions for Georgia prospects. We'll start with athlete Thomas Blackshear. He's the number 10 athlete in the country from Savannah, Georgia. Just under 6'1", really good-looking prospect. FSU, Tennessee also involved with this one, but why are you predicting the Dogs?
Well, join Chad Simmons on my forecast there. Talking to Blackshear in the past, Georgia's a great place in general. Talked about the facility and campus being amazing, the pedigree. He was able to instantly click with James Coley after having a great relationship with Coach BMAC, who moved on to the NFL. So talking to the sources, in addition to that, I like where Georgia stands for Thomas Blackshear.
All right, now the next name on our list is Juan Gaston, and of course he's going to end up at Georgia because he's an offensive lineman that goes 6'7.5", 345 pounds. We know how the Dogs like to take these big monster bodies and form them into great elite offensive linemen. Juan Gaston, Atlanta, Georgia. Who else is competing for him, and why did you predict him to the Dogs?
Well, Georgia's prioritized him as much as any prospect on the board in state. Anytime him and his mom come on campus, they already feel like they're part of the program, from Coach Searles to Coach Smart. That entire coaching staff has made Juan and his family feel very comfortable there. Certainly they like the track record of development, not only on the offensive line, but the team in general, proximity and everything. He's going to take his official visit to Georgia the first weekend of June. That starts on May 31st. And I like where Georgia stands going into that trip.
All right, now last week we talked Todd Robinson. Actually, I was talking with Chad Simmons about Todd Robinson, and under the radar, 3-star. He plays quarterback at Valdosta High School, but he's going to be a running back on the next level. We have him ranked as the number 57 running back overall and the 744th best player. He goes 6', 185, but he has offers coming in from everywhere right now. Why do you have the Dogs as your pick?
Well, Georgia has him ranked higher than we do. They love him. He's coveted on their board. They've done a great job recruiting him. And again, alongside Simmons, I like where the Bulldogs stand. And Georgia's in great shape for several running backs right now this cycle. I also like the way it's trending for them in Ousmane Kroma. If you ask me today, do I think Kroma will be in Georgia's class? I would say yes. Now, the caveat of that is that I do think that they're going to get Todd Robinson. And so that leads another spot. You got Kroma out there. But they're also hosting next week for the scavenger hunt for his official visit, 4-star running back Bo Jackson. And I think Georgia may lead for him as well out of Cleveland, Ohio.
Steve, you hit on the scavenger hunt. That'll take place next weekend. Always a big event, always draws some top recruits there. What big names have you confirmed that'll already be in Athens for next weekend?
Yeah, and there'll be more names than the ones that I'm going to drop right here. But you got few official visitors. We already talked about Bo Jackson. Offensive tackle Zayari Addison is going to be taking his official visit. He's been making the rounds across the country. A couple California receivers, Marcus Harris and Phillip Bell, will also take their official visits. And then Georgia's going to host some terrific unofficial visitors. The nation's number 2 safety, Trey McNutt, is going to be on campus. Kentucky edge rusher, defensive end Javian Campbell, who we have forecasted to Kentucky right now, he's going to be there. Georgia's certainly one of the top contenders for him. Brock Harris is a tight end from out west that's expected. Chad Simmons has had the news that the number 1 linebacker in the On3 industry ranking, Zayden Walker, will be back on campus. There could be some guys committed elsewhere that are going to be in for the scavenger hunt as well. So you're going to want to stay locked in with On3 and the guys over at the Georgia On3 site, Rusty Manziel, Jeremy Johnson and company, as more names come to light.
Dog fans, comment section below. How do you think that this running back room is going to shape up? Who are your top picks? Let me know. Comment section below. Big weekend coming up as well. Let's whip it around to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. We're going to talk some Crimson Tide recruiting, and let's go to the trenches. Why not? Now, here you see a deep and talented offensive line board. We'll start at the top here with Ty Haywood from Denton, Texas. He's a 5-star. Now, OU and A&M seem to be trending on his recruiting prediction machine. We know Alabama's been trying to get into this recruitment. Steve, do the Tide have a shot here?
Well, I think when you talk to people around those other programs that are considered front runners, Alabama is a school that they have marked as one that's potentially dangerous in this recruitment because that's the program he grew up rooting for. So he is excited to get to Alabama for his official visit and is already starting to build a good rapport with Coach Kapolovic and that staff. So while I maybe like where Oklahoma stands right now, and you're certainly not turning a blind eye to A&M that's had him to campus a couple times and some of those other programs, Alabama is a dark horse in the recruitment of Ty Haywood.
All right. Now, Alabama is recruiting all over the country. So let's go out to Las Vegas, where you got Douglas Utu, the number 3 ranked interior offensive lineman in America. Alabama's been putting in some work here. What do you think of Utu and Bama's chances?
Well, I talked to a source yesterday about Utu and Alabama, and he said his gut feels like Alabama is in the lead right now. Now, Utu's coming off a great visit to Washington. There's other programs in play, but certainly Alabama's at or near the top of his list.
Yeah, and then you got a couple of other interior offensive linemen Bama's also involved with. You got Michael Carrol out there in Pennsylvania. You got Micah DeBose in-state. I don't know how many Bama's looking to take, but who do you think is a priority right now for the Tide?
Well, they wouldn't turn either of those guys away from what I understand. And talking to Michael Carroll's family this week, I think that Alabama has set the bar as he goes into his official visits. Now, that's a recruitment that's been fluid. There was a time where Michigan and Penn State were the front runners. His dad played linebacker at Penn State. His mom played basketball at Michigan State. And that's where his relationship with Chris Kapolovic, Alabama's offensive line coach, began. That carried over when Kapolovic did a short stint at Baylor. But now he's at Alabama. He's one of the first prospects that he offered when he arrived in Tuscaloosa. And Carroll's been to campus where he's really already gotten a chance to see how he fits in with the players on the team. And I think that's a key part of his recruitment. Him and Tyler Booker have already buddied up. He's made friends with some of the guys on the defense that want to bring him in because they know that he can help make their program better. So he feels that camaraderie around the Alabama locker room right now. Sharon Moore, Michigan, they've been in this a long time, and he FaceTimed with Sharon this week. So I think Michigan's the biggest challenger to Alabama right now. But I like where the Crimson Tide stand for Michael Carrol as he goes into his official visits. And then Micah DeBose was recently on Alabama's campus as well. When you talk to some people that spent time with Micah, you get the sense that Alabama is a program that's really on the uptick in this recruitment. A former Georgia commit, LSU's had some momentum since then. Auburn's had some momentum since then. Ohio State's kind of always laid in the weeds in this recruitment, but I think Alabama is definitely a team to watch for Micah DeBose as well.
Yeah. DeBose's recruitment is a little bit more open than it seemed to be a couple months ago. One more offensive tackle I wanted to talk about is Jackson Lloyd. He goes 6'6", 280. He's out of Carmel, California, and we know Alabama has had success out in California, especially now with Kalen DeBoer on campus. Do you think Bama's trending for Lloyd right now?
Yeah, we talked about it on the last whip around. I have an RPM in for Alabama right now. Now, USC is certainly a contender. Ohio State was just out there. Coach Justin Fry, he offered a scholarship. He's going to return the favor and go visit Columbus this weekend. Ohio State's hosting 3 coveted offensive line targets this weekend. Andrew Stargell from Georgia, and then Henry Fanuku from Texas, the other. So maybe Ohio State makes a move. But right now, I really like where Ohio State stands for this 3-sport standout, Josh, an offensive tackle that also shines on the hardwood and is also a terrific baseball player.
Steve, what's your early thoughts on Kalen DeBoer as a recruiter at Alabama?
Well, Alabama has a top 10 recruiting class right now, Josh, and they're in on some of the best players in the country. And I think one of the things that stands out to these top prospects when they come to Tuscaloosa is just the culture within the building. You know, all these guys love working alongside each other, starts at the top with Kalen DeBoer all the way to a terrific off-field recruiting staff with guys like Courtney Morgan and Aaron Hodges. So I just think there's great energy in the building. Certainly there's a track record of a lot of success with this coaching staff. Then you add into that what Alabama football has been over the last couple decades. And I think collectively that's a heck of a recipe for the Tide on the trail. And we talked about those offensive linemen. We could do a position by position a rundown of where Alabama stands, and there'd be a lot of blue chippers in there that we'd be saying we think Alabama leads or is near the top 4. So I think they're doing a terrific job early on since arriving there this winter.
Yeah, it feels like it. And Alabama fans, let me hear from you guys. Comment section below. How you feeling about Kalen DeBoer as a recruiter? I know it's only a couple months in, but I think we're getting a feel for him as a recruiter. Let me know. Comment section below. All right, let's head to Columbus, where the biggest visit of the past weekend was David Sanders, the number one offensive tackle in America. He visited Ohio State for his second unofficial visit of the year, his third visit total. Steve, you caught up with the family of David Sanders after this trip to Columbus. What's the latest?
Well, they see Ohio State as a land of opportunity for David, with the track record of player development, the after college opportunity with Ohio State and the alumni, certainly the city of Columbus and what that entails, and getting around Coach Fry, Coach Day, seeing the coaching style of that program. This was his second visit of the spring. He's got an official visit set for June 21st. That may be his last visit of the process before deciding. And like I said on Monday, I think Ohio State is one of the front runners in this recruitment. Certainly, I think the same way about Tennessee. Mm-hmm. Now, Georgia is a program that is going to continue to make a major push, and there was a time where I loved where Georgia stood. Clemson's the childhood dream school. They lead off with the official visits May 31st. Then you get Georgia that second weekend. Alabama's in there. We could have included him in the offensive line section there. He has Bama on the short list. Then he gets back to Tennessee and Ohio State. South Carolina already got their official, but Ohio State has momentum in this recruitment. Family likes it. He went there with his parents, his grandparents, and his little sisters, and they're starting to really like Ohio State a lot. And the Buckeyes definitely cannot be slept on in the David Sanders sweepstakes.
Do you think that we see any other unofficial visits kind of sneak in, or does he kind of hold off until official visit season starts?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if David Sanders, outside of his top six, visited another program or two as he continues through his process and dots I's and cross T's. So we'll see what happens.
You've got a pretty good pulse on this one. What do you think is becoming like the most important factor for David Sanders and his family?
Well, I think player development is a major component for David Sanders. And then I think, with him being an A student, the degree and the support that athletes get from the academic support staff are things that will be key in this process. And then with every blue chipper, you also have the NIL component.
All right, Ohio State fans, tap in. Let me know how we feeling about David Sanders. Comment section below. All right, we're going to do a new segment here. It's called Things I Want to Ask Steve. And there's just a couple major developments this week I want to pick your brain on. What do you think of Chad Simmons' scoop on Jamie French, where he says that Texas is his leader? Do you think that the Longhorn hype is real? Can Texas hold on to this lead through National Signing Day?
I think after his recent visit to Texas, he definitely saw a place where he could be very successful for a coaching staff that has a track record of great offenses and great wide receiver play. Obviously, Chad was out in front of it, but since then I've talked to some people that also feel like Texas is a program that's trending here. LSU in the middle of it as well. Florida State's not going to go away on Jamie French, Tennessee. But Ohio State, that's where the RPM favors of Jamie French to ultimately land. And, the dialogue still remains strong with Brian Hartline, Ohio State, and that coaching staff. And so he's expected to take an unofficial back up to Columbus this summer, then take an official during the season. So we'll see if Ohio State can regain lost momentum in this recruitment, or, sometimes recruiting is just funny in general. But right now, there are a lot of people led by Chad's report that think that Texas is a program trending.
All right, QB Keon Russell, an early commitment to SMU. His recruitment has since blown up. Alabama, the most recent to offer. Ole Miss is a threat to flip. UF is a threat to flip. But Texas is sniffing around. They haven't offered yet, but they made him a priority. They were out to see him this week, one of the first prospects that they saw. Steve, in your opinion, if Texas offers, is this one over? Does Keon Russell flip?
I'm not sure there, Josh. I think that Texas is good with their current quarterback, KJ Lacey. I think that he ultimately, as the way it stands now, I do not have him on flip watch. I know he's been on other campuses and keeping other schools warm, and other schools are keeping him warm as well. Ole Miss, Oregon, Auburn being a few of those programs. But I still think Texas is the heavy favorite for him. So I don't know if I guess the real question is Texas trying to take two, or are they keeping Keon Russell warm because KJ Lacey is keeping some other schools warm? I think that KJ Lacey ultimately ends up with Texas still. Or does Texas just say, hey, Keon Russell's too good for us to pass up? We offer a scholarship to him and make him a major player. He absolutely likes Texas, but Ole Miss is a program that I have marked as maybe the biggest threat to flip him from SMU right now. They offered him before SMU. They've had him on campus a couple times already. Just had a great official visit. They think that program's about to burst. They really like Lane Kiffin. They really like Charlie Weiss and that offense and being around that program. So Ole Miss is in an interesting spot. And he's got the upcoming visits to Alabama and Florida, and he has emerged as the top guy for both of those programs for where they're at in the process.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, 5-star offensive tackle Michael Fusi. He said he's, quote, moving toward a decision. He told Chad Simmons that this week. One of the top available offensive tackles in America. And if you had to put in a pick in today, who would it be for?
I'd probably put it on Texas, but he took several visits to Texas A&M this spring, so I think the Aggies have made up a lot of ground there. And there was a time where I would have said Oklahoma leads for Fusi. So I think they're in the top 2 or 3, but he's got a wide net out there right now. Colorado, Oregon, Georgia, some of the other places that he's taken recent visits to. Missouri's in the middle of it. Missouri's in the thick of it for several of these top offensive tackles as well. But Fusi, if you're asking me today, I think I'd probably ride with Texas, but wouldn't be surprised if he picked A&M or Oklahoma.
All right, we got a couple commitments coming up that I want to talk to you about. Deary Hill, he's out of Belleville, Illinois. He's one of the top athletes in the country. He comes off the board Friday. Who are the main contenders, and who do you like for Hill?
Well, the RPM's on Oregon. He's recently visited the Ducks. He's been there twice this calendar year. He's one of their top targets regardless of position, and the intel remains the same. I like where Oregon stands with him.
All right, Kobe Sellers is coming off the board soon as well. He's out of the state of Texas, a cornerback, the number 20 ranked cornerback in the country. When does he decide? Who do you like for him? Decides
this weekend. At one point, I felt like Oklahoma was in the driver's seat, but after several visits to Texas A&M this spring, Texas A&M has moved into pole position, and I like where the Aggies sit with him going into his weekend decision.
All right, Steve, take us out of here with some recruiting intel on Nebraska and Washington Husky QB recruiting.
Well, Nebraska is going to host a couple of official visitors for Mother's Day weekend. First, they're going to bring back on 300 offensive tackle Broderick Shaw from Bixby, Oklahoma. He was recently on campus, visited the weekend before Nebraska's spring game, where he was the only prospect on campus, if I remember correctly. And he was truly impressed by that visit, said the facilities are the best he's ever seen. The coaching staff is organized. He likes their trajectory of turning Nebraska around and getting Husker football back to what people remember it to be. Now, my RPM's on Auburn for him, so Nebraska, in my opinion, still trying to make up ground. Texas Tech and Texas A&M are also in play, but it's Nebraska's turn to have serve, and we'll see what happens coming out of the weekend. And then they're also hosting an intriguing Sunshine State pass rusher, Nicholas Clayton, who's an explosive athlete with a lot of physical upside, guys that Matt Rule and company have had a lot of success with in the past. They're bringing in Nicholas Clayton for his official visit. And guys, don't be surprised if this visit list grows by an elite blue chipper or two come this weekend. And earlier this week, Josh, Washington landed a quarterback commitment from Treston McMillan, the Gatorade State Player of the Year in Hawaii, and it's another major pickup for them. They already had a commitment from Dash Byerly from the state of California, so that gives them 2 of the West's best quarterbacks committed to Jed Fish and this new coaching staff, and they only have 2 scholarship quarterbacks on the roster right now. So they're still going to look to add from the portal for some depth purposes, but there wasn't a program in the country that needed to hit on quarterback more than Washington this cycle, and for them to go out and land 2 of their top guys, 2 prolific passers that had fantastic junior seasons, was as pivotal for any program in the country as what Washington has done at quarterback recruiting this cycle. And that'll do it for today's episode of Wiltfong Whip Around. Please don't forget to hit like and subscribe to continue enjoying and being notified about this great content on the On3 Recruits channel. We'll be back at it next Monday. Stay locked in to On3 Sports for the latest on your favorite teams throughout the weekend.